Hello, y'all on YouTube. This is Rob from Rob's Nerdy Knives. Today I have an interesting Rob's Rambling. I want to talk about knives and their action. And I've had some knives that have come into my collection lately that I've enjoyed, and I've had some knives I've had in my collection for a while that I really do enjoy. And one of the things that I've noticed is I enjoy the action of a knife. And what I mean by that is how it deploys and closes. And that can be very satisfying. Now, to some people, may not matter, may be totally irrelevant. And if that's not for you, then you feel free to comment and let me know that that doesn't matter. I'd love to hear your perspective on it because I'm learning all the time, and I'm totally open to hearing everybody's perspective on that. But for me, I really enjoy that. So I have some knives here. Like this is one of the newer ones. This is the Dave Warren Envy version 4. This is in CPM S90V steel with this aluminum infused carbon fiber, really gorgeous. But the action on this is just, it's guillotine. So now I did put skiff cage ceramic ball bearings on this, and as you can see, it just drop shuts. It's super smooth and it's buttery, and it's in there solid. It's not blade rock. It's not moving around. It's a solid blade alignment and everything. It's not moving around. It's not so smooth and drop shutty because the pivot's loose. It just really truly is secure and nice. And I have Loctite in there, so the pivot's locked in place. Just really nice. I like that. Another one that I have here is the QSP Penguin Plus. This is one of the newer ones. I put a Lynch deep carry clip on here. Really like that. Got rid of that wire clip. I didn't care for that. As you can see, all my knives have scuff marks because I use them. I'm a user of my knives, and so I don't apologize for that. If you want to see perfectly pristine knives, either two things are going to have to happen, right? I would need to have a lot of followers to make a lot of money on this channel, which I don't think that'll ever happen. But that would have to happen to the point where I could keep a whole collection that's just for the TV, for the shows, or what do you call it, and then my personal use knives. But that's not going to happen. Now, all these knives are my personal use because I enjoy knives. That's why I'm doing this. My son said, hey, you should do a YouTube channel because everyone likes to hear about it. And so I'm doing it. And there seems to be a few people who find this interesting. So I want to keep doing it because, one, I enjoy knives, and I want to help other folks provide content and information and things that could help them out. And I'm hoping that that's what this does. That's why I do it. So this is a beautiful knife. I have the QSP regular Penguin, traditional pocket knives. Sold a M390 with a jigged milled titanium scales, but this one came out, and this is the smooth. I believe it's sandwashed or sandwashed, whatever. I think sandwashed, sandblasted. Sorry, sandblasted titanium scales. Really nice. And then I put in, like I said, this Lynch deep carry clip to get rid of the wire one. But the action on this is just beautiful. It just drops as well. Now, part of that is the blade. It's heavy, and it's also just nice cage ceramic ball bearings. They run in there really nicely, smoothly. I made sure it was clean and everything's nice and lined up, so it works beautifully. It just makes it satisfying to deploy the knife because, one, not just for the fidgety factor, but when I want to use this knife, I want to be able to deploy it quickly and go, right? I don't want to be sitting there where I'm going to have to roll it open, make sure it's locked, and then I can start using it. I had a Chris Reeves Umnumzon, loved it. Gorgeous knife. Don't get me wrong, it is a grill knife, and I had it, but I sold it because I didn't carry it. I didn't like the action. I couldn't flick it out and deploy it because it's meant to be what's called a slow roll. And in fact, some people even say you shouldn't, flick a Chris Reeve knife. And so I didn't like that. And if it's a knife I'm not going to carry, I'm not going to keep. So I like this one. I like how it works. The action is smooth. Again, a lot of these all have cage ceramic ball bearings. That always helps on these. This next one was one of those finds I found on Caviso. They had a Caviso Ray Laconico collab. This is called a Keen. They used to be a drop version of this, and they came out with a new one. Matter of fact, they're making a mini of this one, which should be interesting. This is so buttery smooth. I was going to put skiff cage ceramic ball bearings in there, or skiff cage ceramic washers in there, but it did need it. It's just so smooth all by itself. And just really a lot of fun. Now, some of these, the action is beautiful, but some of them, there's just a sense of buttery. When it rolls, it literally feels like it's just gliding. It's gliding over things. Some of them, you feel like, It's maybe not quite as smooth, but it's still beautiful, still gliding. But it's it doesn't feel like it's like butter on top of glass. This feels like butter on top of glass. This feels like I don't know, eggs on top of Teflon. It's still very smooth and sliding and very satisfying, but it's not quite as slick. Here's another one. This is Bade Modern Designs, Bade Bade, and you don't see this one anymore. I have it in my collection. I won't get rid of it because I really like this knife a lot. This guy is the one who designed this one right here. He's also the guy who designed this Tuya knives, this High version 3. You can see the same little design there. I don't know if you can see that. They both have there and there. So, and this one, I had to tune this one up because this one didn't have great action, but I'm going to talk about that in a second. But this has always been just such a pleasurable knife. It's just so fun, easy to deploy any which way. And why I also enjoy that, I mean, the fidget factor, yes, but whenever I need this knife, if I need to deploy it quickly, boom, I'm there. If there's no sense of like it's gonna fail. I'm always gonna get that out there, and it's gonna deploy strongly. I know some people really like strong detents, and these knives would all work with a stronger detent. I just like a lighter weak detent, and I'm okay with that because I tend to deploy my knives pretty strongly and pretty good about knowing where to deploy it and how to deploy it. So I don't really have any failures on those. Another one, the new WE knives, Big Banter. This is another one where I think the geometry on the blade is more helpful in how the action comes about. Just a little bit like, I believe, the Penguin, the heavier blade, because it's a larger plus blade and it's a thicker blade. I think that really helps the action on this one a lot. This one is the same as well. It's a liner lock, steel, a steel deep carry pocket clip, but this is CPM 20 CV steel. And so, but because the blade is heavier, and you can drop it right there to the finger twirl, so your finger's gonna be safe. It just closes really beautifully, and this one is almost buttery smooth. So the K ceramic washers inside work really, really well. I didn't replace these, but they work really, really nicely. So I do like these, and that's another beautiful, fun, buttery smooth knife. So I have a few that are just exceptionally buttery smooth. I would say the Keen, the Stunner, and the more recent one, the Envy version 4, is particularly smooth. And I'm waiting to talk about this one. Other ones that are very smooth are going to be like the Penguin, and I believe the Banter. This one's close to in between. I love my Vero Engineering Axon. Beautiful knife. I did put Cage skiff washers in here, and this made this one buttery smooth. At first, it was a little gritty. I didn't like the washers in there. Once I put those in, this particular knife was far better and smoother. Now it falls into where it's real close to the super buttery smoothness of the Keen and the Stunner and the Envy, but it's not quite there. It's just a little step below it. Now here's my Leon Ma. Now its standard washers that came in there work great. I put skiffs in there momentarily, didn't change the action. The action was, quite frankly, the same. So skiffs, as great as they are, 99% of the time will make a knife better. But every once in a while, when you have a really well-made knife, it won't really impact it. And that's the case for this one. Of course, if you know this is the GSD Get Stuff Done, I won't tell you the real name because I don't want to get my YouTube channel in trouble, because the real name is SH, and then, you have the I and the T to it. And that's what it's called, Get That Stuff Done. And so, or you could say get ship done, like the boat, right? I'm not going to say the word, but this one is a lot of fun. I love the audio, the acoustics, if you will, when it deploys and then when it closes. That's a nice knife. I would probably put it into definitely this group of the Envy, the Keen, and the Stunner. Now it gets closer to what I'm about to talk about here. That's my Arnaud Bernard iMamba. And that's a semi-custom, it's a production knife, but it's a semi-custom production knife, I would call it. Just like this is a production knife, definitely for Leon Ma, but I bought this directly from Leon Ma, who tuned it and checked it and quality QA'd it and everything. So I don't know, I just feel like it might have been a little bit nicer than if I bought it through one of the places where they get it directly from Riot. But it's a really wonderful knife. This is a Riot made knife. That's a Bestech knife. That's a WE knife. That right there is a key, and I don't know who makes that for them. QSP makes that one, and that's Tuya knives. I believe they are an OEM that does their own knives. Really nice. And I'm Arno Bernard. They do their own knives in South Africa. But this is really, really nice. I do enjoy that. Now I have another couple examples here. There's the CJRB limited edition pyrite. Now there's the budget version. This is the limited edition. Titanium milled handles with a black micarta inlay, so it's contoured. CPM S35 VN steel, nice flat grind, and it is a beautiful button lock. Just the action is fantastic. Like, it just drops wonderfully. And it is Cade ceramic ball bearings in there. They work really, really well, and the physics on this one make this just so beautiful to deploy every time. But again, it's not a frame lock, and the thing about button lock is really, it's the physics where it's not engaging. You press the button and it should just fall shut. So there's not a lot of friction here. And in one way, button locks really are different than liner locks and frame locks, in my opinion. They engage differently. They're made, I think, for different use. I don't think any button lock, my personal opinion, at this point where I stand, except for possibly the Les George new button lock, that if you've ever seen it, you might agree with me on that. But most button locks are not meant for super crazy heavy-duty work, right? The physics behind them, if you look at how a plunge lock works and engages in the button lock, it's just not meant for that. That's my opinion. I'd love to hear some of you guys, if you're an engineer or you're in science or you design, let me know where I'm wrong on that, because I'm learning. But from what I know, as of right now, that's where I stand. I don't think a button lock should be a crazy heavy-duty knife, right? Especially if you're in the woods. If you're in the woods, you're cutting trees and twigs and breaking, logs to make firewood. Get a fixed blade. That's what you need out there. That's the safest thing for you, is a fixed blade. That's what you should have. Don't use a button lock, and even then, don't use maybe not a secure lock. Get one of the more super secure locking mechanisms, like the Scorpion lock or the Shark lock, or the compression, not the compression lock, the back lock. I think there's some, Andrew Demko came up with a lot of those, but those are just ridiculously strong kind of locking mechanisms. But this is, again, crazy smooth and very fidgety, and there's no grittiness to it. It's just beautiful drop action, and it is in there secure. It's not rocking or anything. So again, I think it goes a step above the QSP Penguin and the wee Big Banter. It's real close to what I would call the Stunner and the Keen and the Envy, if not equal to them. I would definitely say that. But it doesn't get all the way up to the super luxurious, we're talking Arno Bernard or Leon Ma, the GSD2. Another one that I found recently, I really, really like this Dan Carrier. He has this little wonderful one. This is the DTF. It's down to flip, I believe that's what it stands for, as I've heard. And it has multiple deployments, a front flipper. Now, it's a smaller knife, and if you have bigger hands like me, you have to learn how to adjust. But it has the flipper here, so you've got to make sure you're clear so you can deploy that. And then you have the front flipper. You got to make sure you're clear so you can deploy that. Then it even has a little fuller so you can reverse flick that. But the action on this is beautiful. You can actually, I don't know if you can hear that, but there's no grittiness. It's just really smooth and drops nicely. Again, this is another one of those. Now, switching from a bigger knife to a small knife, once I get familiar and comfortable with this is just, I have no problems with it. It's just, if I haven't carried this for a while, I just realize I have to hold it a little lower down here to deploy it and make my fingers clear before I do that. So, and I didn't do that here. There we go. But I would call it along the lines of the Big Banter and the QSP Penguin Plus. And that's where probably the Wii right here. This is the Gavco Hi-Fin. Now, this one, I always thought it'd be like the other Wiis, but man, I gotta tell you, this one's really smooth. Now, the detent is a little stronger, so it doesn't have the guillotine kind of action, but it is smooth. It's not gritty. It just goes really smoothly. And I know some people are like, oh, that's just the detent, how much you tune the detent. I get that, yes. But there is a audible and a vibrational feel that you have when something's very, very smooth. There's like no vibration, no grittiness. There's no, like, there's like the balls are running on top of glass. It's just very, very smooth. It's very different. And I get that from like the Keen. I get that from the Envy, and I get that from the Stunner. But I also get that here from the High Fin. And I thought it would be similar to the Big Banter, but this one's really smooth as well. So, there is that. Now, this is a unique design. I like it. Some one guy on one of my videos said, he goes, this has a touch of Batman, and so I feel like this knife should be called, it has a touch of I am Batman. That's kind of how I would describe this knife. It's not as crazy as that Max Ace that looks like a Batarang, which I would never buy, and is ridiculously expensive, made by Riot. If you like crazy, weird, unique knives, you would love it. It's not a knife I would carry because I would never use it. So it is unique, and I like designs like that because they lead to cool designs. And who knows, maybe the High Fin is a result of the Max Ace. And if that's the case, then thank you, Max Ace, for inspiring the Gavco guys to make a really cool knife that I just really like. But the action on this one's beautiful, just gorgeous. It's a lot of fun. And that is something I enjoy. Another recent one that I really love a lot is the new Brian Brown Raptor version 2. This is a really, really, really nice knife. Now, it came out with the Riot cage ceramic washers in there, and I put in the skiff on this one, and that just made this just beautifully drop shut and so much smoother. I really like that. This is one of those knives that it has a big blade and a big handle in the same sense of lengthwise, but it's very small and thin, but you still get a great purchase and a great grip, and you don't feel like you're losing control, and yet it feels small. So I like that. So if you have really gigantic hands, this will be like a small knife to you. If you have really small hands, this will definitely feel large to you, but you'll feel very much like you can really handle this knife and control it. If you have medium to medium large hands like myself, or large to large, extra large hands, this is a really nice knife. It's very, very hypnotic and smooth. And it's very buttery. This one right now, because of the skiffs, this one falls in line, I think, with the Keen and the Stunner and the Envy. Really, really, really do enjoy that a lot. And that's a lot of fun. So now there's another one that I got recently. This is the CJRB large feldspar. This is the exclusive from White Mountain Knives. This is a red fat carbon with M390. I did put the skiff cage ceramic ball bearings. It's got a heavier blade, so that allows to the drop shut action. But it's not quite as buttery smooth, but it's still very smooth. So it's very satisfying. And I think what makes this satisfying, and sometimes what makes action satisfying, is not necessarily it has to be perfectly buttery smooth or anything like that, but it's just the way the blade closes and deploys. Being a larger blade, it's very satisfying to get that very strong, deployment. I like that, especially with the way the flipper works. Just really executes well, and even the thumb studs, the way you can really get under there and really deploy it very strongly, and even reverse flick it very strongly. It's very satisfying. And then the weight of the blade allows it to drop. Even though it's not necessarily as buttery as some of the other knives, still very satisfying. So that's another thing that I really enjoy. And you'll have to find out what you enjoy most. I had another knife recently. This is the Dave Warren Tuya Knives USA. Got this one here. It was done through Tuya. Again, we talked about it earlier, Bade Modern Designs. The same guy, he designed this one. I had to tune the detent. It was very, very strong. Very, very strong. And I noticed a lot of reviews. People really liked it, but I didn't see a lot of people using this knife. And it seemed like everyone noticed that it was really strong detent. And I wondered if that was the case. So when I took this apart and I put in some skiff cage ceramic ball bearings, I wanted to tune my detent. I did do that. And that allowed this knife to be incredibly more useful. It can shake shut now very nicely. I mean, I didn't make it as super smooth as I normally would, because I feel like it's going to break in and become what I want it to be eventually, right? But at the same time, I didn't want to over-tune it, and right now this is way more satisfying than it was. It's one of the few flippers that I really, really, really enjoy as a flipper. It just has a very satisfying deployment of the flipper and engagement when it locks in, and then when it drops, it's just really nice. But skiff cage ceramic ball bearings, tuning the detent made this very satisfying. Now, it's not buttery smooth, but it no longer is gritty, coarse, and kind of, not very, very unsatisfying, I should say. It doesn't have that anymore. And I think it's going to continue to get better, but that's one of those things where you can kind of bring a knife, I think, into that
satisfaction mode of what you're looking for in a knife. If you're willing to learn a little bit and be careful and cautious and slow and not be frustrated, right? I think you can get there. This was a challenge. I have a video on this if you want to watch it. It took me like an hour to do, but I cut the video down to like 18 or 16 minutes because I zoomed and skipped forward a lot of things and sped up a lot of things, so you didn't have to sit there and be bored out of your mind, but you could just see the key points. Check it out if you want to. But that was a lot of fun, and that was a real learning experience as far as this knife. And I really feel like this knife could, man, I think this knife could, I don't know, I think this could have been such a huge hit had the detent just been a little bit better on this one. That's just my opinion on that one. All right. Now, before I talk about the last two, here is a washer-based knife. This is my Bug Out 535-4. It's aluminum milled scales. It's the M390 special edition that they came out with. I really like this knife. This is one of my few Axis locks. I have maybe 2 or 3 Axis lock knives. Not many. I used to have a ton of Bug Outs. And so this one was a lot smoother before. I had to replace the Omega spring. I bought some from Austin, Texas. They made some of the USA made ones that were a little stronger, and it made the detent and the Axis lock a little stronger, which I really wanted because the Mega Springs coming from Benchmade. One, if your Mega Spring breaks, you have to ship in the entire knife. You can't just get a Mega Spring and replace it. That to me is, I don't know, it seems ridiculous. And then when I did that, I lost the stop pin. Yeah, it's probably here somewhere in my office, and I've yet to find it, but I lost it. And so I had to order a replacement part for that. And I think that stop pin is maybe just, a nanometer shorter than the original one. So that made it a little tighter. And the action that I had in this was so buttery smooth. I had buffed down or polished the washers, the phosphor bronze washers in there, and had it the action perfect. It was no rock play. It was solid in there. Everything was tight. But man, I could just drop it and it would drop shut. And you see, it's not quite there yet. It's just enough tension that it just doesn't quite drop shut. So if I do that, you'll see it's not quite there. But still very nice. Very, very nice. And I know it'll get there. It just, all the time I took to break that one in, I'm having to do again. And I don't know. When you do something once, you're like excited and you get to the point, and then, you have to do it all over again. It's kind of a letdown. So that's why I haven't really done it. And admittedly, I'm doing this now because I'm hoping, just to do a few here. We're going to get closer to that. But the action on this one was beautiful. Now, I've seen Les George knives and some other really high-end custom knives. They have ridiculous action with their phosphor bronze washers. So I know it can be done, and I saw it on this one. I loved it. Just simply a fun knife. But you can get that buttery smooth action. There was no grittiness. Now, I've had a lot of Benchmades. I've had a ton of Benchmades. And this was by far the smoothest Benchmade, the most buttery smooth action I've had of any Benchmade. But I also took this apart. I polished the phosphor bronze washers very carefully, very evenly. I watched some videos on how to do that. And I actually put some videos together where I've done that as well. I tuned another Benchmade that I gave as a gift, and got really great action on that one. I did the same for my Doug Ritter MKS1 or whatever it's called, the knife that he does there through Hogue. That had great action before I sold it. I never carried it, and it wasn't a knife that I was going to carry, so I sold it. Like I said, every knife I have in my collection I want to carry, and I do carry. If I'm not, I'm going to sell it or, give it away to a family, a friend, or something like that. But this is my favorite Bug Out. This is my favorite Benchmade knife. I like this one a lot, and I really like the way this is, deep carry clip and all that good stuff. Really a lot of fun, and it has some red accents. The backspacer, and then you have the the standoffs, and then you have the thumb studs, which makes this really nice. And I can carry it on Fridays for Carrie wears something red. That's nice. So I just wanted to point out you can get the same beautiful buttery action even from washers. It may take a little work. You may have to polish those washers and learn how to do that to get that very even, level kind of smoothness that you want, so it has that action. So finally, this is probably my most custom-like knife I have. This is my Arno Bernard. This is the iMamba. I got this from South Africa, and it's a little dirty, of course. Sorry. Anyways, I got this from South Africa. The exchange rate is very favorable right now, and you can see it's a polished RWL 34 steel, really fantastic steel. Let's see if I can get that cleaned off a little bit here so you can see how beautiful that is. And I've used it, so you'll notice that I already have some scratches on it because I use my knives, including this one. It's not a queen save. I'm not going to not use it. You know, I realize that's going to happen to knives when you use them. But titanium, sandblasted, beautiful texture. Feels like a Chris Reeves knife, but it's on ceramic balls in there. It's not caged. They're free floating ceramic balls. So when and if I take this apart to clean it, I have to be careful not to lose those balls and keep a close eye on those and not let them roll away. The good news is I could probably replace them with some of the Skiff free-floating ceramic balls. So if I needed to and I lost some, I could probably get some reordered and replaced and still have that wonderful quality, because Skiff I think would be in line with their quality, right? Beautiful, you know, engagement back here, all the things you want in a knife. But this has that butteriness that is just like a step above. This is as close as I've gotten to in a while. I had a quiet carry, what was it? Quiet carry. What was the one that they had? It was a little itty bitty one. I'm thinking about it. Sorry, I'm trying to see if I can recall. Anyways, it was a small quiet carry. They just made a large version of it, and it had the smoothest buttery action I'd had of any knife, and you could feel it. And even anybody who deployed it and when they felt it drop, it was just buttery. It's like this thing right here. It just feels buttery. You know, this one as well. It feels buttery. You know, and you deploy this one, it feels buttery. There's no grittiness. There's no vibration, no sound that you feel in there that's typically there when the surface is not perfectly leveled. And I think to get to that, everything has to be really leveled. The ball bearings have to be very perfectly circular and spherical. They can't be deformed or elongated or anything like that, because that causes it to roll weird. It's kind of like if you have a shopping cart and one of the wheels is not perfectly round and you had that boom, 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 boom that occurs on the wheel. Well, imagine that on a more microscopic level on the knives and the ball bearings. When they're perfectly rounded and they're perfectly spherical like they should be, and they're running very smoothly on the steel, it's going to be very smooth, very low friction. And that's what you want, like in your cars when they pack in the ball bearings on the wheels. If those aren't perfectly, you know, balanced and leveled and same size, I mean, you can have a whole bunch of failure issues in your car, right? And your axle and where it attaches and everything. So I think that's the case here with this. It's just beautifully done. And I don't know how they get to that level, if they measure each one of the ball bearings before they put it on there, or if there's just a feel for it, and you know, it's just perfectly very low tolerance, very, very, very low tolerance machinery or whatever. But this just has just such a buttery smoothness, and if I let this go, this will eventually close just by the weight. It just goes slowly. It just falls down slowly. And you know, I did a little short on this, and some guy didn't care for it. And so if you're still following or subscribing, I know you didn't care for it. You felt like that was a D10 issue, and I see your point. I definitely respect that. But you know, any of the other knives, when they're not so perfectly buttery smooth, once they hit that little friction point that causes maybe the vibration where it's just not perfectly smooth, they'll stop. Basically, it's like a little whatever catch somewhere. But when you have that machining and tolerance is so perfect, it's going to keep rolling, even if it's rolling very slowly. There's nothing resisting there. And that's what I've noticed with this. Now, I just don't have time or the patience to wait for it to go all the way down, but you will see, you know, you'd have to go at a different angle, that it does that. But it's just so smooth. It's so wonderful. I enjoy that. That's just my perspective on it. I don't know what yours is. Feel free to leave a comment down below. Let me know how you feel about it. What's your thoughts on this? What are things that you really look in a knife? This is what I enjoy: action and the deployment, and you know, the closing of a knife. I find that very satisfying, and it's one of the aesthetics in a knife that I really look for. I'd love to hear what yours are. Feel free to comment down below and let me know what you liked about this video, or maybe didn't like, or some things you'd like to see. I would love to hear from you guys. And If you enjoyed this, found it entertaining, funny, or, just something worth listening to in the background, would you mind consider subscribing and hitting the like button? I sure would appreciate that. And maybe even hitting the notification button if you want to hear about upcoming videos. And also, if you like this content, check me out over on Instagram at robs_nerdy_knives. That's robs_nerdy_knives. I'd love to see you over there as well. Hey, thanks so much, and have a great day and a great week. Bye.